Well, good evening to you. Great thanks for joining us. This is Family Matters. Like I've always told you, this is the conversation you really don't want to miss because we're talking about the intersex and we're continuing with a story that we were telling you last Sunday. But of course today, the story has a little bit of more taste because we want to look at the legal question also in terms of the legal hurdles that, you know, people living this way have to encounter. On set, very quickly, let me introduce the panel that I have. I have James Karanja, who was here with us on Sunday. I also have Ryan, and I also have Wakili Mbage Nganga. Thank you all, gentlemen, for joining us. Obviously, from the story that we had last Sunday, James Karanja was formerly, if you allow me to use that term, formerly Mary Waidera, went to a girls' school up until Form 3?
No, Form 4.
Form 4, up until Form 4. And then we have Ryan, who formerly was Ruth Wangoi. And of course, he told us his story. And Wakili has been dealing, you know, on a daily basis with these issues. And obviously, the legal question is what we'll be talking about. First of all, Wakili, welcome on set. And let's just look at other statistics in terms of the number of cases that we are looking at in Kenya, including the ones that you estimated that are hidden and are not spoken about. Okay. Yes.
Well, the studies reveal that globally we have between 1.7 and 3% of the population being intersex. So that translates to about 1,350,000 intersex persons in Kenya. But this is just an extrapolation based on the global trends. We are yet to establish clearly the number of intersex people in Kenya.
Yeah.
And right now, the task force on policy, legal, and administrative reforms regarding the intersex people is carrying out some field studies to determine, roughly determine the number of intersex people we have in the country.
All right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And we'll get now to, to the legal questions because obviously it looks like there's still people out there that have such children. They're not talking about them. And, it's still a question, again, that needs to be addressed. But let me come to you, Ryan, because at the point where we left is where you had stayed away from home for how many months?
More than a year.
More than a year, and then your auntie spoke to you and you decided to come back home. Let me ask you, by the time you're coming back home, have you reconciled with the fact that you were angry, you were feeling frustrated, and now you want to come back home, perhaps to begin a fresh or a new chapter with the same people who were tormenting you?
What made me to come back at home is not that because I had reformed. It's only because my aunt explained to me that my mom is so stressed. And like I mentioned on Sunday, after I was born, my biological father abandoned us. Now, my mom, I was brought up in a single mother family. Now, I loved my mom so much, and I do love her so much. So I was to do that for her because she was so stressed, and also for my sibling. So I was to do that for her so that she can feel comfortable and she can maybe feel like I'm trying to help her to reform, but not because of I was comfortable getting back there, but I was to do for her. Yeah. And that's how I did. I tried to maybe to fake that I'm good, of which I was not, because in the society, all the things that I have gone through. But what I was doing is like locking myself in the room, not going out, but trying to help my mom to raise my sibling. Yeah.
You went back to the same people that you said had, planned to publicly humiliate you because of this, oh, she's a girl, oh, he's a boy, and stuff like that. When you went back, how are you feeling? Were you feeling secure? Because at this point, you're feeling for your mom because you want to help her raise, your siblings, and because she's stressed out. But then there's still the society to think about. How did you overcome that? Were you feeling secure in that area again?
No. For me, I thought maybe because the secretary have been away for more than a year, maybe they have forgotten what was happening. But the things were even more worse. than it was before, because again a group of young men succeeded to undress me, and now this time I decided again to move away from home. But by the time, I also talked to my aunt, and my aunt helped me to rent a house in Limuru town, and I started staying there. Up to that time, up to dates, like naendanga tu kutembea. So from that time.
You've never been secure enough as to spend so much time where your parent was born, and perhaps to even have time with your siblings, right?
Yeah.
All right, we'll come back to you. But James, yes. Here you are, you've finished your secondary school, and then finally you're joining university. How has the university handled, or your fellow students handled the fact that, this is James Karanja now?
Actually, after I completed high school, that is in 2010, I stayed for 6 years before I joined the university. Okay. That is when now, 1 year before I joined the university, I met Honorable Isaac Maura, and he was trying to navigate through maybe the system by requesting, by that time the next CEO was Dr. Kivilu, so that maybe he can change my certificates, but he refused. And both of us were like, okay, there's no way. So then I had now Gadonwa Mushamba talking about intersex persons. So she invited me in her radio program, and so she asked me what I want. I had two options: either one, to get money for the surgery; second, money for the school. So I opted school fees because I felt that if I get educated, I can be able to pay for my own surgery. So that is where I decided, or that is when I decided to now join the university. The problem was I never had an ID card. And since I was not baptized, because the priest had refused to baptize me, then she introduced me to an Anglican church. Now that is, I got baptized, and through the baptism card, I got the ID card. So I joined the university now with an ID card of James Karanja, but my school certificate was reading Miriwethera.
All right.
Yeah. And I think the only time I had a challenge was in the first semester during my final exam, because the lecturer requested me to sign that I did the exam, but I was required to have a school ID. I did not have one, so he requested for a national ID. So I had James Karanja ID marking against Miriwethera. Then he sent me out of the exam room. I think that was the only time I had that ish moment in the university. From then, everything has been running smooth.
Slow down a bit. You have an ID reading James Karanja.
Yes.
But your KCSE certificate, if I'm not wrong, and your transcripts are reading Miriwethera.
Yes.
And I'm sure before they admit you, they look at your transcripts, number one, as a university, because they have a right to do so. Yeah. So how do they reconcile James Karanja and Miriwethera?
I think the schools are not interested with the national ID. They're interested with the certificates.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So to them, here is Miriwethera, passed her KCSE exam. Now she can join the university.
You're in university right now?
Yes.
It means that your transcripts are still reading Miriwethera?
Yes.
Quite interesting. And I think that's why we need to come, before we can even escalate this conversation further, Wakili, that you can go to the Kenya National Examination Council and you want, because there's something that is, it's reality that you have your certificates reading one name, but again you have another name, and it is, as a result of this. What legal avenues exist for a person like James or Ryan to get their certificates changed from what they were reflecting earlier? Yeah.
Right now, there is no legal regime, and that is why the Attorney General in May last year appointed this task force on policy, legal, and administrative reforms regarding the intersex people.
Yes.
In order to come out with policies to govern how situations like this can be handled. It's not only educational certificates, also birth registration. You find The reason why this task force was set up initially was as a result of a court decision, a high court decision in the case of BBA, where an application was made by the mother, supported by the CRADO, which is an NGO, for the court to determine, you know, what legal regime. This is a baby whose sex could not be determined.
Yes.
Because she had ambiguous genitalia. The doctors couldn't determine whether it was a boy or a girl, and they did not. The doctor wasn't sure whether he should issue a birth slip leading a male or a female. So they sought guidance in the courts how to deal with such cases, and the court held that there was no legal regime. They couldn't give any directions because they too had no guidelines on how to handle this situation. So the Attorney General was ordered to come up with guidelines to deal with the situations like this.
And we'll speak about guidelines, but it's you know, good enough that you have said we had not even gotten there as a country in terms, you know, of the legal perspective, you know, in terms of how we handle these people. And we'll also perhaps think about it, because I'll come back to you later, comparatively how other countries, perhaps that you would say developed countries, are handling issues like these ones, and how they can be applied back home. But let me come back to Ryan. So for you, it has been juggling between where you have rented to, you know, where you were born. When you go back there, because I'm sure you have gone back there severally, do you see acceptance from the society, or accepting this is Ryan, this is the person he has become, not the person he was? Do you see an acceptance from the people around you?
Yeah. When I started now the activism and advocating for my rights, and also to be recognized how I am, I think they understood that it was not my fault. You know, I can say, like, there before, I was the first person in that society they have ever had or no. But after that, I can say we are very good, even a good that area, like. Now I'm chairperson of like 4 groups, youth groups there, another group. So I can say for now, I'm good with them.
Do you find, because obviously the biggest problem with, you know, Kenyans is sympathy, you know, extending too much sympathy until sometimes you feel uncomfortable. Do you feel comfortable with the sympathies extended to you when you go back home, or when people know what you have gone through?
Yes, because one thing in my work is to let people understand and learn that intersex are a human being. And one thing I've been telling them is not focused on what is between my legs, like what is between my ears.
Wow.
What I can do, what I can perform. Again, I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm looking for opportunity that can be given equal opportunity like everyone, because I'm normal. I'm a human being and I can perform and do everything like a human being. So for me, I don't feel any... I even don't remember anyway. I only remember when I want to give the story, but when I'm with them, I enjoy, and because I want them to understand. Because I believe I'm not the last person to be born that way. The children will continue and continue be born. Now I want to create a conducive environment and a society that understands that these children are human beings.
And we'll also, you know, talk about the acceptance, because you've been doing a lot of activism and advocacy out there in terms of acceptance around the country, because like you know, Wakili said, 1.3 million is not a small number, and obviously it's a question that needs to be addressed. But coming back to you, James, I'm sure even before you went to university, you have tried addressing the question of, you know, trying to change your certificates so that they can reflect who you are right now. Tell us, apart from NEC, what are the other challenges you've gone through in terms of ensuring that now you are recognized as James Karanja?
I think now that one will just have a social aspect. Maybe like people, I'm telling people like I'm transitioning from Mary Waithera to James Karanja, but they still insist, no, we knew you as Mary Waithera. You must remain as Mary Waithera. I think that was one of the big challenge, and that one would it leads to low self-esteem because deep inside I know who I am, but still the society does not want to accept me. So you just find that you resort to, you know, suicide. I tried 3 times committing suicide.
Too?
Of course, 3 times. And
Tell
even
us about
today, I really do not even understand how they never succeeded, the 3 of them. Yeah.
The first time, what was going through your mind?
The first time is that, so I am an intersex person.
Yeah.
Nobody wants me. And so no one ever wanted to give me even a simple job. And if they give me, then they would slash by a half. Because at the end of the day, I would not complain. And if I complain, then at the end of the day, I don't have anywhere else to go.
Parade.
That was one. And now, again, my mom, she's mentally challenged. She has been raped. She has a child. So all these people, except are looking for Mary Waithera to provide. But Mary Waithera, in her own ways, cannot provide because she's treated as an outcast in the society. I have no family members to turn to. Then you feel like it's the end of the road. And the only solution is just committing suicide. Yeah.
So what did you do the first time?
Just using ropes and those...
You went up?
Yes.
Where? On a tree?
Not on a tree, in a house. In mashambas there are those, I don't know, the shafts.
The ones that have piles, the roof.
Yeah. I think it was so dry that it cracked. I fell down. Just woke up and assumed nothing. The second time... So
nobody rescued you? It's just you that woke up
I
to
used to
your
live
conscience.
alone.
Okay.
I used to live alone. I tried using drugs, overdosing.
The second time you tried to overdose?
Yes. They never worked on me. I met myself going to the hospital. Maybe I think I was...
To try and undo the intoxication?
Yes. And at that time also, it was using rope. Yeah. They never succeeded.
They never succeeded?
They never succeeded.
Wow. Wakili, before I can even, throw the question that I had said I would throw to you earlier, what has been going through my mind, this entire of last week, and obviously when we aired their story the other day when they had a forum here in Nairobi, is how can science go so wrong? I mean, this was Mary Waithera. This is James Karanja. Hata base unasikia base akuna. How can science go so wrong?
Well,
obviously it's a science
Mr.
question.
Kioria, I'm not a scientist, but I'm also flabbergasted how it can go so wrong but these are matters of nature. There are so many things about God's creation that we don't understand. Even among the medical profession, there is a lot of lack of knowledge on these matters. Most of the doctors, do not even understand these issues, except those endocrinologists who are trained in that field of medicine. So a lot of them don't understand it, because you may have cases like James, who was born Mary Waithera. At first they thought it was a girl, and they brought her and socialized her as a girl. But when he reached puberty, then the male hormones started to dominate, and he became, a man. And these are some of the things that have been causing problems to the intersex people, because when they are born, in assuming that they are one sex, but as they grow up, some hormonal developments, lead them towards another gender, another sex.
So what guidelines are you looking at? Because, like you said, this task force, through the instigation of a court and through the Attorney General, this task force was formed. What guidelines are you, looking at? And in terms of introducing this legal regime, perhaps even into our constitution, what are you looking at? And what do you seek to change?
So we are looking at issues like surgery. James will tell you what a lot of people have been complaining about is that you get a child who is born with a male and female organ. And then the mother or the doctor decides that we are going to socialize her and bring her as a girl, and they undergo surgery where the male part is cut, only for later for that child to develop at puberty, and the male hormones become more dominant, and she feels now I'm a man, and then we have cases like that, and so the preponderance of the opinions that we have been having when we interview both the intersex people and the doctors is that surgical intervention should not be the first point of call.
At the point when they have been born, surgery should never be an option.
Should not be an option.
Okay.
They should only undergo this later in life when the child herself or himself determines, based on my condition, I'm a man. And then she can make that decision. But it's not for the doctor or the parents to determine who she is, who he or she is. So that is one of the issues that we are looking at.
All right.
Well, there are other issues where it has been said that, especially in cases where one of the condition is of autistis, where you have both male testicles and an ovaries in the same person, and they produce, hormones which may lead to some cancer. So at that point, the doctor might probably decide to remove, either the testes or the ovaries, so that, to prevent cancer developing. But these are cases which even medical science is not completely sure.
Yeah, has not been able to resolve completely.
I think this is an area we have been able to, in the course of our task force deliberations, we have had presentations by medical personnel who are now coming to, who have indicated they are coming to take these issues seriously. 2 weeks ago, we had a roundtable consultation. The various actors in the government who are involved in these matters, from Minister of Education, Minister of Interior, that is the registration of births and deaths, and also the Director of Medical Services. The representatives of the Director of Medical Services indicated to us that because they see this matter has become have taken a prominence, they will now sit and form a group within the doctors to issue guidelines, how to develop guidelines on how these cases are going to be treated.
Hold that thought. We're going to come back to you. And of course, you can continue interacting with us on our social sites at KBC Channel 1, at Kioria. The hashtag we're using tonight is Family Matters. And also, you can write us an email very quickly, familymatters@kbc.co.ke. And also on Facebook, John Jacob Kioria is my Facebook page. And KBC Channel 1 is also a Facebook page. Interact with us and, of course, give us your feedback. We'll be reading them out. But let me throw this back to Ryan. In the course of your engagements and advocacy, and you've gone through the country, because in our conversation with you last week, you told us about, you know, the different places you've been to for the purposes of advocacy. Do you find people who are well aware about the existence of intersex people, or much of what you find is assumption?
I can say, like, some of them are aware that these people are existing, but the problem is they believe it's a curse or a bad omen.
Yeah.
Like when I was in Western Kenya, many of them explained to me, like, when the children were born with maybe ambiguous or any variation regarding intersex person, they were starved to death. You see, they don't kill them direct, but they were starved to death. That killing them slowly, you find some mother not breastfeed
the child. Yeah.
The child. So, so that tells like they were aware these things do exist. But the problem is they never went to a point of researching or like want to know what is the problem. Is it the mother? Is it the father? Or is it the child? Because 80% of the intersex I've met, they are from single mother families. What does that tell? Like there is a blame somewhere. They find like the father could feel like it's mother's fault to give me a child who is not fitting to be a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
So that tell there is a point of ignorance or even blaming for those who knew the condition exists. The less like they can tell like they only heard from news, some in South Africa, other in other countries, but they don't believe those people do exist in our country. Like now we have been doing more research and collecting data, but many of them are saying like we only read of those stories, but we don't believe that they do exist until the time you tell, but I'm one. So they are like, oh, so they are human beings. Because for them, they think that it's someone who you can tell by the look. You see, maybe I don't know how they think maybe, but they believe like it's how you can meet a blind person and tell that person
is blind. Yeah.
Blind, you know. Now that's why they don't believe those people do exist. But I'm happy because for the few interviews we have done, maybe locally and internationally, has tried to change people's mentality. And now people are agreeing like these people are human beings, like everyone, they have their rights, not their fault, not their parents' fault, and I'm happy for that.
All right. It's important that, you know, in the course of your engagements, you're also saving lives. Let me hear your experience, James, in terms of, you know, speaking boldly about these things. Because number one, it takes moral courage for you to speak boldly about these things. When you're speaking them to people, what are your experiences, you know, talking about this?
I think one of what got me a big shock, is I met with an elder from Turkana. And they were telling me that intersex children are used as sacrifices when they won't trade other communities. These children are regarded as special in their way. And I was trying to equate that to how intersex persons are treated in India, because they are treated like gods. They have high-ranking places in India. And no, that is to the nomads here in Kenya on how they treat intersex persons. But in most of those cultural places, or in rural areas, they tend to believe that these children are, you know, curse, witchcraft, maybe that the use of, actually, most of the elders were also blaming the contraceptives. Yeah.
Because of the use of contraceptives?
Yeah, when mother, the hormonal, because they tend to equate these issues with hormonal imbalances.
Africans are special people, I included. But we'll escalate that in a bit. But Wakili, for somebody like James Karanja, or Ryan, it's easy for them to say an affidavit and they change their name. But there's still that issue about the gender, male, female. In terms of how you're addressing the issues in this task force, what areas are you looking at and how are you going to frame the law, you know, to ensure that that is also possible if they went back to their birth certificate? What is this? Because I'm assuming for somebody like James, when they want to get their passport and there's the requirement that they bring their original birth certificate and then they have an ID that is reading James Karanja, immigration obviously will start raising issues in terms of issuing them a passport. So how will you change that in terms of what you're proposing?
One of the things is to recognize in law that there is a category of people known as the intersex. Right now, the only law that is explicitly recognizes that is the law relating to persons deprived of liberty, which provides that when an intersex person is taken to prison, special arrangements can be made at her request for the way who is going to carry out searches, how they are going to be accommodated. We need to mainstream the codation of intersex in our laws so that when a person like now James goes to the Ministry of Education, that is Kenya National Examinations Council, to change his certificate, then the questions that are being raised should not arise because the law explicitly recognizes that. Yeah. And it may not be just one law. We may have to do some consequential changes to a number of laws, you know, to recognize this condition and create a framework where, you know, people with those certificates can be helped.
Does that mean then, in the place where one's gender is mentioned, and where it's marked in the birth certificate, you know, male or female, that you will introduce another segment where one can be, you know, clearly written as intersex?
Well, we are still consulting on that. It is one of the possibilities, but we have not made a firm decision on it because one of the things that intersex people have also been grappling with is some don't want their condition to be known. They wouldn't want that to appear in their documents. And some, like James, surely knows that he's a man. I don't think James wants his certificate to show intersex. He wants to be shown as a man. So we are still grappling in that, and we are going to the stakeholders.
Sorry for disrupting you, because some of the avenues that exist is either retain the gender male, the male female column on the birth certificate, or introduce another column of the intersex. But this one of the one that is existing is if James was labeled as female, then so many years later they will want to change and be labeled male. So are you looking at a situation where one can be allowed to change their gender in future, or are you going to ensure that there's a column that one is marked as intersex, that you don't have to go back through the motions of setting an affidavit to change the gender in your birth certificate?
But you see, as I have said, there's instances where one is born and you think is a girl. And the doctors don't seem to think there is a problem there. But as they let her grow up, the male, the male hormones or organs become dominant. They start developing a deep voice, they start having a beard. So in that case, one still feels he wants to be socialized as a man or a girl or vice versa. So this is where I'm saying we need more public consultations so that clear guidelines can be made on this. We have not come with a firm mind, but those are possibilities.
Those are possibilities.
We have received submissions, especially from that group which told us that
KCPF.
Kenya
Christian
Professionals Fellowship.
Yeah.
We are very against the situation of other gender because they are thinking that this is an avenue for
to sneak in
transgender.
All right, homosexuality.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. So they are totally opposed to that, and their recommended option is to leave the gender marker as
male,
blank.
Okay.
So that as the child grows and reaches puberty, and he or she makes his choice, then that is the time you put in the gender. Yeah.
And that's the point where I'm sorry to to still stay on this one, because I'm sure even in future, or as it is right now, you're looking at other comparative jurisdictions in terms of how they handle the intersex.
Yeah.
Leaving it blank.
Yeah. Is
there another jurisdiction going that route?
There is no jurisdiction that has actually done it. There were very exhaustive studies in Germany. They had set up a task force.
Yeah.
And they had recommended the gender marker intersex to be put. But when the matter came for policy decision at the government level, they said no. So there is no country that has yet come to give that gender marker.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me perhaps listen from this gentleman in terms...
But they have created a possibility of the changes.
A possibility of the changes.
Yeah.
Which is what we don't have in our laws.
Which is what we don't have.
All right. Ryan, how would you want, perhaps this task force or the government to address your issue as formerly Ruth Wangoi and now Ryan?
One thing what I've been trying to advocate for is like adding the third column of an intersex.
So you would want it labeled male, female, and then the other column has intersex?
Yeah. The reason why I'm trying to say so is like it will help to create more awareness, and it will even give the doctors freedom of the naming, including the parent, the naming, and also giving the child the gender. Because the reason why I have been trying to research, immediately when I was born, the doctor said it's a baby girl, but you need to seek for more medical attention because they knew there is a problem. But the doctor, including my mom, they never had that freedom maybe to give me in a third column. But if only we had that column, I could not have gone through all these challenges, because it could have been clearly saying that I don't fit to be a boy, again I don't fit to be a girl. Because given a gender, it's not someone's choice, because you are given even before you know yourself, immediately when you are born. Now, in order to avoid the whole people get a chance to do this, let's start from the early age, immediately when you are born, and there, because you don't have choice, because the birth certificate will clearly tell you were born with ambiguous, or whoever, we never knew whether you are a boy or a girl. Now it's upon you to say, where do you fit? Again, there are those people who are more than female but less than a man. They don't fit to be a man because they are less, and again they don't fit to be female because they are more. So they're in middle, because in intersex we have as many as 46 variations. So in those variations, maybe we can check of one, maybe like low hypospadia. Let's say like it's somehow minor, but we have mixed gonado, whereby it's very hard.
Hey, my friend, you have studied hard about these things, yeah?
It's very hard to tell whether this child is a male or including the medical expert can't tell, unless you divide that person into two pieces, of which is not possible. So that's why I'm saying there is need of having that, so that it can help to create more awareness, and it will help to have the freedom.
All right.
Yeah.
James?
Okay, allow me not to comment on that, because I'm a member of the task force, and I would seem to maybe give a direction on where or what may be the final outcome.
But obviously, I'm sure in the task force you will have to...
Exactly, but being as the only intersex member, then that means I have a voice. And
I have your opinion, you can tell me privately.
Maybe, yeah. But I will say this, it is very important that we understand that the key and the most important person in the whole of this discussion is an intersex person. So it is very important that we ensure they are protected. That is one. And the question of what if is only answered by an experiment. I think rules are repealed. So whatever we might have at the moment, it can be repealed. But let us have something that focuses specifically on the rights of intersex persons.
All right. Of course, the primary mandate is the plight of the people, of the intersex people. But Wakili, obviously, a tinge of controversy from my end, though, because there's also this conversation that has been ongoing about the transgender, but this is the intersex, about the transgender. Have there been thoughts within your circles or outside your circles to broaden your mandate to look at people who are also, transgender? Because if a person was born male and they were actually confirmed male, but then somehow in the course of their lives, they feel more feminine and they start developing feminine features, why would you deny that person the right to be who they want to be because they were labeled male?
Well, let me say I really don't want for now to go into that because the problem where the intersex people have had problems of being accepted is our society, the way they view the transgender issue. When we were appointed as task force members, we really wanted to have a broader, to co-opt more people, including the religious groups, so that they can add their voice to these deliberations. But that is an area nobody wants to be associated in. So for this task force to be effective and not to be stigmatized, although I'm not saying that those people don't have rights, we decided to restrict ourselves to the intersex people because that is the only way we can be able to go out there and say the people we're handling is a different group because their problem arises because of their nature, not how they feel, what they are. And that is why we have decided really not to mix the two issues.
All right.
But I may have my own views about
this. Obviously, this, as the chair of the task force, you're limited towards the intersex. But let me ask very quickly, how many sittings have you had so far and where are you headed next?
We have had quite a number of sittings. The first part of our sittings from May until July, we did a lot of desk work, comparative studies, seeing how other jurisdictions have dealt with this issue. Then we started, of course, the period of the elections came, and we digressed. So nothing much happened. But after that, we now started having, group representations from doctors, from the intersex people, from Christian organizations, and religious organizations. The last few consultations we have had with the government people, especially the Minister of Education, especially the Kenya National Council, Kenya National Examinations Council, the Minister of Interior, because these are the ones that are charged with dealing with matters that the intersex people are complaining about, like legislation and the issue of documents, identification documents. These are the ones we have been engaging. So right now, we are in a phase where we have sent a team into the counties to carry out some field visits and collect data. And this is why these gentlemen said they are very tired because they have been in the counties
I've been
collecting the data.
All right, we need to wind up this conversation, but this a consistent question that has been asked the last 2 Sundays. Why are you smiling? Like you're guessing where this is going?
No.
And hoping it doesn't trivialize the conversation or sound, like a stigma. Have you given a shot at dating? Are you intending to get married?
Okay. I'm a proud father.
Oh, you are?
But I'm not yet married, but maybe soon.
What do you mean you're a proud father? But
I'm a proud father. The reason is I can't get the marriage certificate legally.
Oh, yeah.
So that I'm not legally married.
Okay.
That is.
But you're married?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
But, I'll only believe that I'm married after having the certificate.
All right.
Type.
But you have a kid?
Yeah.
Who calls you father? Fantastic. That's good news. James, have you given a shot at dating?
Education first.
Education first.
Yeah.
The rest of the things follow.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
That's good focus. Wakili, your last remarks so that we can wind up. I understand we're running out of time.
Mine is to appeal to the Kenyans to recognize intersex people as part of our humanity. In other cultures, as James says, they are regarded as gods. Even in the old Greek myths, we had the term hermaphrodite. Hermes was the male god, and Aphrodite was the female goddess. And they were treated as special people. People were taking sacrifices to them, honoring them. So they were given a status, but in our societies, these people are seen as a curse. But they are human beings whom we want to empathize with the problems that they have. And we should accept them in our society. There are those societies, as Lion has said, starve these children to death so that they cease to be part of our humanity. Mine is just an appeal that we should regard these people as part of our common humanity.
All right.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Your last word, 30 seconds. I know you're tired.
My last word is maybe to congratulate the government for the steps they have done, being the petitioner, from the report, the petitioner. Now I'm waiting to see, because I have the chairperson of the task force. I'm eagerly waiting to see the recommendation they do. And for our viewers, let's meet tomorrow in Radio Jumbo at 11.
Yeah, I give you that opportunity, but you don't announce that earlier. Very quickly, James.
Okay, thank you. For me, I would just like to tell people that they should treat intersex persons the way they would like to be treated if they were intersex persons themselves. Yeah.
That's profound. You would, the way you would want to be treated if you were an intersex person, treat the same. I have several tweets here, and I will just take about 3 because of the time. Khalid Isa says, humans are God's creation. Human knows nothing unless God lets him. Today, human sees God with mistakes. Shame on them. Jacob Utachi says there ought to be a recognition regime so that intersex persons receive the much needed urgent attention and care. Another person here saying, thank you, Channel 1, for the determined awareness raising and unrelenting advocacy on the plight of the intersex persons. And we are, glad for the 3 of you to be with us in this panel. And again, for both of you for coming yet again to do this. And perhaps you can continue engaging more and more to create more awareness as part of your tours, across the country, but also here on air, so that people get to understand that these people exist and they also have rights. And it's something we ought to be thinking as an entire country and towards that direction. So thank you, James, thanks, Ryan, and Wakili, thank you very much for joining us. And by the way, Wakili is the chairperson of Kenya Law Review.
Law Reform Commission.
Law Reform Commission, that is LRC, and thank you very much, KLRC, for joining us tonight. My name is John Jacob Kioria. Thank you very much for your feedback and your company. God bless you.